Hey guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. This is your host Thomas Tyree from On the Hot Podcast. Today, I have some bonus content for you guys. The bonus content we'll be covering today will be in the sport of football inside the NFL world. If you guys have not checked out episode 108, is now available on all four of our platforms: our Instagram account, our Facebook account, our YouTube account, and our Apple Podcast account. So if you have not watched or listened to episode 108, you can check it out on all four of those platforms. But the bonus content I have for you guys today, I'll be sharing my top 5 worst NFL trades of the 21st century. So everything of the 2000s and beyond in terms of NFL trades is eligible for this segment. And these are the top 5 trades, in my opinion, that have transpired during the 21st century. So at number 5, I have the Oakland Raiders trading for Antonio Brown back in 2019. Yes, I said Oakland Raiders because this was actually the final season that the franchise was in Oakland before they moved to Las Vegas. So at the time, the Raiders were the Oakland Raiders back in 2019 when this happened. They traded a third-round pick to the Pittsburg Steelers, a 2019 third-round pick and a 2019 fifth-round pick in exchange for Antonio Brown, the deal that they made with the Pittsburg Steelers at that time. And they're so lucky the Raiders did not give up much more for Antonio Brown, because back at that timeline, Antonio Brown was one of the best wide receivers in the game. In my opinion, the best wide receiver that the NFL had to offer at that particular time. And they're lucky that the Steelers didn't really want to get rid of Antonio Brown and didn't really ask much in terms of trading him. The Raiders luckily didn't give up too much draft capital, only give up a third and fifth round pick in the draft of that respective year in 2019. But this was a beginning of Antonio Brown's downward spiral that we've seen in not only how his NFL career ended with him taking off his shoulder pads at MetLife Stadium when the Bucs played against the Jets a few seasons ago, but this was the downward spiral of how Antonio Brown's livelihood has turned him out to the person that he became to be outside of the NFL as well. So it all started. This was the start of the downward spiral. It started during training camp in 2019 when the NFL was going under new management in terms of NFL helmets. Antonio Brown had a problem with the NFL helmets. He went on strike, did not participate in mini camp or mandatory camps, and basically threatened to retire from the NFL because he had an issue with what was going on with the helmets in the National Football League. So that is a red sign. That's really crazy when you think about that. And then he only suited up one time for the Raiders franchise. That one time only came in a preseason game in 2019 at the end of the summer. Antonio Brown suited up but never even played in that preseason game. So technically he suited up for the Raiders but never even played a game when you think about it. And it's just crazy. And then he also has, that's on document, his altercations with Mike Mayock. That crazy phone conversation that's out there between him and John Gruden, where John Gruden basically told him to shut up and play football. Those altercations basically led to Antonio Brown not even being traded from the Raiders, but officially released from the team. It's crazy to think about because you could have had one of the best wide receivers that this generation had to offer, playing alongside Derek Carr, and at the time Amari Cooper was gone. Excuse me for that. But it could have played alongside Derek Carr, and it could have been a part of John Gruden's offense. With the Raiders, never happened because Antonio Brown could never get his head straight and focus on football at that time. At number 4, the Denver Broncos trading for Russell Wilson. Now, let's pump the brakes here. A lot of you guys might say, how is this number 4? This just happened a year ago. It's very early in the trade. We're just a year and a few months removed from this big monumental trade that happened between the Denver Broncos and the Seattle Seahawks regarding Russell Wilson just a year or so ago. And it's very early, but this could go down as one of the biggest one-sided trades in NFL history. It'd be also one of the biggest downfall trades in NFL history. The Broncos gave up a massive haul for Russell Wilson. They gave up a total of 3 players, 2 first-round picks that ended up being offensive tackle Charles Cross that the Seahawks took a year ago in the draft. Devin Witherspoon, the 5th overall pick in this past draft, which was actually the Denver Broncos' 5th overall pick, but that was given to the Seattle Seahawks because of the Russell Wilson trade. And then that actually helped the Seattle Seahawks draft Jackson Smith-Njigba, one of the best wide receivers, in my opinion, the best wide receiver in this previous draft class, because they had an additional first-round pick, their real first-round pick. So because of the Broncos, they got Devin Witherspoon and Jackson Smith-Njigba in this year's NFL draft. Charles Cross I believe, is going to develop as one of the best offensive linemen in the National Football League as an offensive tackle. And they gave up a total they gave up so much to get Russell Wilson. And then look what the Seattle Seahawks did. The Seattle Seahawks believed in their backup, Geno Smith, who was the backup of Russell Wilson. They didn't panic. What happened week one? We saw Geno Smith and the Seattle Seahawks knock off the Denver Broncos in week one in a high anticipated game that ended in drama. But they did that and they never looked back because Geno Smith outplayed Russell Wilson the entire last NFL season. He had a better season than Russell Wilson and helped the Seattle Seahawks get to the playoffs in a year that looked like a rebuilding year for the Seattle Seahawks. They actually accomplished more things than what the Denver Broncos did. At least made a playoff appearance. At least had Geno Smith as a Pro Bowler compared to Russell Wilson. It's crazy when you think about it. Russell Wilson played absolutely horrible last year, and he was supposed to be the next best quarterback in Denver since Peyton Manning retired, and to help the Denver Broncos get to the playoffs since Peyton Manning retired and since they won that championship in the 2015-2016 NFL season. And if this repeats, I'm claiming it as number one, the worst overall trade in NFL history in the 21st century, because Russell Wilson has no choice but to ball out this year. He cannot have a performance like that. And it will go down, to me, as the biggest and worst trade in NFL history in the 21st century. Russell Wilson repeats what he did last year. But moving on to number three, the Denver Broncos are still here. And it happened in the 2010 NFL draft when the Denver Broncos traded up to draft Tim Tebow. The Broncos trade away a second, third, and fourth round pick in 2010 to the Baltimore Ravens to select Tim Tebow, to move up in the 2010 draft and select Tim Tebow 25th overall in that draft. And unfortunately, Tim Tebow never developed as an NFL quarterback, never lived up to the hype, never lived up to his Heisman winning days with the Florida Gators, never lived up to those national championship wins that he helped the Gators have back in the day. Never developed in that as that unsung hero in the National Football League. After the Cinderella playoff win that he experienced when they knocked off the Pittsburg Steelers early in his NFL career, and then they got blown out by the the New England Patriots, Tom Brady, Bill Belichick and company. This team never looked the same. Tim Tebow never looked the same because Peyton Manning came to town the following year, and Tim Tebow started bouncing around team to team looking for an opportunity to be a franchise quarterback, which led to him being released by several NFL teams, which led to him trying baseball and trying to get back in the NFL, becoming a tight end, which never really had a chance in Urban Meyer's eyes as well. So it's crazy to think about that the Denver Broncos did this, and Tim Tebow never lived up to the hype. So that's number three for me. And number two, the Washington Redskins 2012 trade with the St. Louis Rams to acquire the second overall pick in the 2012 NFL draft. So the Redskins trade away a total of 3 first-round picks and a 2012 second-round pick to take the second overall pick from the St. Louis Rams in the 2012 NFL draft. To me, it's so harsh to have the Redskins on this list, but I have to have them on there. And it's because of how everything played out at this particular time in 2012 and beyond for the Washington Redskins. They traded away so much draft capital. They traded away several years of first-round picks to acquire the second overall pick in the 2012 draft. Yes, was it the right move? Absolutely. It was a home run hit at that time. But how it played out for the franchise, it's hard to say that's not in the conversation. To me, that has to be a number two because Andrew Luck was automatically going to be an Indianapolis Colt, and 1 and 2, you move all the way up to that spot to get a former Heisman Trophy winner, Robert Griffin III. And like I said, it was a home run hit. I mean, the franchise was 5-11 the previous year. They went and got RG3. They won the NFC East that year and hosted a playoff game against the Seattle Seahawks, but then that's when RG3's knee injury happen, and he never recovered from that knee injury, which led to RG3's downfall in his NFL career, unfortunately due to injury. And when you think about it, if RG3 never got injured, it to me is in the conversation for one of the biggest what ifs in NFL history if RG3 never messed his knee up. But unfortunately, due to how the franchise played out afterwards, I have to put that at number 2. And at number 1, this is the automatic for me. The Chicago Bears moving up in the 2017 NFL Draft to have the 2nd overall pick. I know Bears fans are tired of hearing this, but it's number 1 as the worst trade in the 21st century in the NFL, because the Bears swapped with the San Francisco 49ers in that draft. Originally, the Bears had the 3rd overall pick, and the 49ers had the 2nd overall pick. So they swapped in the 2017 draft. You move up one spot, and you trade away 2 third-round picks and a 4th-round pick to draft Mitch Trubisky from North Carolina University. You drafted Mitch Trubisky at quarterback to be the franchise quarterback that the Chicago Bears franchise never had. Because let's talk about it, in terms of history, Jay Cutler is the best thing that's ever happened to him at the quarterback position. It's so bad to say. They never have had a franchise quarterback ever in the history of the Chicago Bears. They never had a franchise quarterback where you can say, oh, we had a Tom Brady. Oh, we had a Patrick Mahomes. Oh, we had a Steve Young, a Joe Montana, an Aaron Rodgers, a Peyton Manning. The list goes on and on. They never experienced to have a franchise guy that has established a winning culture for them. Never in the franchise. And what they did in 2017 should have been a crime. They drafted Mitch Trubisky over Patrick Mahomes and over Deshaun Watson when they had the 2nd overall pick, both quarterbacks sitting in their laps to select, and they went ahead and drafted Mitch Trubisky 2nd overall. It should be a crime that this happened, because what Matt Nagy saw in him, I don't know what you saw. Because you had 2 generational talented guys sitting in the palm of your hands in Patrick Mahomes. Look how his career is playing out. He could have won 2 championships with the Chicago Bears. Look at Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson has been one of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League since he's been in the league. And you could have had both of them. And how this played out, it has to be number 1, because Mitch Trubisky never developed as a guy that was supposed to live up to the hype, being the 2nd overall pick in an NFL draft. And he became one of the biggest busts in recent memory, and he became a bridge quarterback. He now serves as a bridge quarterback, a mentor for the Pittsburg Steelers with Kenny Pickett. And then the first year that he was released or was gone from the Chicago Bears, he was a backup to Josh Allen in Buffalo. It's just very unfortunate. It's one of the biggest head-scratching moves, the way how Mitch Trubisky's career has played out compared to the likes of, especially Patrick Mahomes. I mean, nobody knew that Patrick Mahomes was going to be the guy that he he is today when he came out of Texas Tech. But it's still a head-scratching move, because still, if you weren't certain about Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson was right there, who just helped the Clemson Tigers win a national championship that previous college football year. So definitely number 1 on my list. But those are my top 5 worst NFL trades of the 21st century. That is all the time I have for you guys today. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. This is your host, Thomas Tyree, signing off. And I'll see you guys on next week's episode.